Star Alex Eala takes center stage at the BNP Paribas Tennis Paradise in Indian Wells.
It's been packed for players like Alex Eala, Joao Fonseca, seeing the Filipino fans, the Brazilian fans.
So I woke up Monday to Alex Eala trending in 3 different countries. And for once, it wasn't because of a match result. Something happened to her this week that the mainstream tennis media has barely touched, and it genuinely deserves a much closer look. On March 16th, she officially cracked the world top 30, career best number 29, a milestone that took 12 months of relentless climbing from number 140 to reach. By March 18th, the WTA ranking system had already processed her overnight and spat out a completely different number, number 50 in the live standings. She hadn't lost a match, she hadn't been suspended, and the WTA offers no appeal window for this. The points simply expired. She now walks into Hard Rock Stadium today, March 19th, to face German veteran Laura Siegemund in the Miami Open round of 64, defending 390 points from last year's historic semi-final run, with most of them already stripped from her live total before she's even hit a single ball. Filipinos are furious. The comment sections haven't cooled down since Tuesday, and the frustration is only growing as her match today gets closer. Others are calling the system broken. The WTA hasn't commented. We dug into the actual mechanics, the numbers, the timeline, and the full structure behind it all. If you haven't subscribed yet, do it before this gets uncomfortable, because what the ranking system actually does to players like Eala is something every serious tennis fan needs to understand.
I do my best. I do what I can, and just if I see an opening, I think it's important that I go for it.
The WTA is about to get exposed. Let's start with the mechanic itself, because once you see how it actually works, the outrage starts to make a different kind of sense. The WTA uses a 52-week rolling point system. Every point a player earns is attached to the tournament she earned it from, and it stays on her ranking total for exactly 1 year. The moment that same tournament begins again the following season, those points come off the board, regardless of whether she's already competing, regardless of how she's performing in other events, and regardless of how close she is to a seeding threshold that could change her entire draw trajectory for the next 6 months. Eala's 390 points from last year's Miami semi-final run didn't disappear because she did anything wrong. They disappeared because the calendar moved forward. That's the system working exactly as designed. And that's precisely what makes this conversation worth having. Here's where the numbers get genuinely uncomfortable. Coming into this week, Eala held 1,525 ranking points at number 29. Once the Miami Open draw opened and the 52-week window closed on her 2,025 points, 380 of those came off her live total immediately. She retained 10 because her seeded bye technically earns her entry points just for being in the draw. That left her sitting at 1,145 points in the live standings, which translated to roughly number 49 to number 50, depending on what other players were doing in their own matches that day, 20 spots, overnight, without stepping on a court.
Eala from the Philippines could be the next big thing in pro tennis.
This was a massive spot to be in for such a young talent, to have a sold-out crowd completely behind.
To do well on the WTA Tour, I'm super proud of what I was able to accomplish, but the end goal is to win slams.
Now consider the timing specifically, because this is the part that genuinely escalates the frustration beyond just a math problem. Eala isn't in a rest week. She isn't waiting for the clay season to start. She is actively competing at the very tournament that triggered the deduction, which means her live ranking reflects the whole before she's had a single opportunity to start filling it back in. Most players who face a significant points drop do so between tournaments, giving them at least a mental reset before the next event. Eala walked into Hard Rock Stadium today already down 380 points on paper, knowing that every round she falls short of her 2025 finish deepens the deficit rather than just stalls her progress. To put that deficit into actual tournament language, if she loses today against Siegemund in the round of 64, she collects only 10 points for the first round bye entry, meaning her net loss from this event alone would be 380 points. That would push her official ranking down into the mid to high 40s range when the WTA updates next Monday. If she reaches the round of 32, she earns 65 points, still a net loss of 325. A round of 16 finish gets her 120 points, leaving a 270-point gap. Even a quarterfinal run, which would be considered a strong result by any standard, only earns 215 points. Still a net negative of 175 from where she started this tournament.
Well, she's being told X, Y, and Z, and I don't think...
The only scenarios where she breaks even or comes out ahead are a semi-final repeat, a final appearance, or the title. That is an extraordinarily narrow margin for what most fans would consider a successful tournament. This is the structural reality that the WTA's ranking system creates for any player who has a breakthrough run. And it's why the word punishment keeps appearing in the comments. Even though technically no punishment has been issued, the system doesn't penalize failure, it penalizes success. That you can't immediately replicate at the same level, at the same event 12 months later.
A perfect finish, really well constructed point again. Left Baptiste guessing which way the last ball was going.
Tournaments are such great experiences for me, especially playing in front of the best crowd ever. And
I'm really happy to advance to the next round. Obviously, it's not in the way I wanted it.
For a 20-year-old who was ranked number 140 this time last year and is now seated at one of the biggest hardcourt events on the calendar, that standard is steep by any reasonable measure. What makes Eala's situation particularly sharp compared to other players dealing with the same mechanic is the concentration of her points. Those 390 Miami points accounted for roughly 1/4 of her entire ranking total coming into this week. Most established top 30 players have their points spread across 8, 10, 12 different tournaments. A strong result here, a decent run there, enough variety that losing one tournament's worth of points doesn't crater their live standing by 20 spots. Eala is still building that diversity. Her ranking is younger than she is in professional tennis terms, and it's carrying the weight of one historic fortnight more heavily than a veteran's ranking ever would.
Of course, the atmosphere in each tournament has been amazing, and it's been a different start this year than any other year I've ever had. So,
sports, Alex Eala makes history in the US as the first Filipino tennis player to compete at the Indian Wells Open.
Laura Siegemund, her opponent today, is an instructive contrast in that regard. The 38-year-old German has been on the WTA Tour since 2010. Her ranking at number 53 is the product of nearly a decade and a half of accumulated results spread across clay, hard, and grass court seasons in ways that cushion any single tournament's impact. She beat Petra Marchenko 6-4, 6-4 in the opening round to set up this match. And while she's gone out before the second round at Miami multiple times in her career, she arrives without the psychological context of watching her live ranking drop 20 spots before the warm-up even started. The Filipinos calling this a punishment aren't wrong about how it feels. They're describing the emotional reality of the situation accurately, even if the technical description is different. What the WTA's ranking system actually does in a case like this is expose how a structure built around consistency and longevity interacts with rapid, unexpected ascent. It isn't designed to accommodate a player jumping from number 140 to number 29 in 12 months. It's designed around the assumption that your ranking reflects a steady accumulation of results. And when one tournament represents 25% of your total points, the system's mechanics hit differently than they do for someone with a decade of spread results behind them. There's a broader conversation sitting underneath all of this about whether the 52-week rolling system is the fairest possible structure for a sport where a single 2-week tournament at the right moment can redefine a career.
Thank you, Jasmine, she says. Paolini gracious as ever in defeat. The former champion is out. Alexandra Eala What are you going to do next? That is some win.
Super happy.
Totally understand the emotion right now.
This was definitely one of the bigger Filipino turnouts. Also, New York was huge. It was tough because it also depends what court you're on, you know, that you feel the noise and things.
The ATP uses an identical model. Most major professional sports ranking systems operate on similar rolling windows. The WTA didn't design this to target Eala, but the design does create situations where a player's live ranking tells a story that has almost nothing to do with her current form, her current ability, or her current standing relative to the competition. And Eala's current form, separate from the ranking noise, is genuinely strong. She beat world number 7 Jasmine Paolini in Dubai. She was leading number 4 Coco Gauff 6-2, 2-0 at Indian Wells before Gauff retired with an injury. She reached the round of 16 at Indian Wells, before losing to Linda Noskova. Through 8 tournaments this season, Auckland, the Australian Open, the Philippine Women's Open, Abu Dhabi, Qatar, Dubai, Indian Wells, and now Miami, she has accumulated the 24th most points of anyone on the WTA Tour in 2026. That's more than Grand Slam champions Madison Keys, Emma Raducanu, and Naomi Osaka have managed this year. The live ranking at number 50 does not reflect that player. It reflects a bookkeeping adjustment, which is exactly why the WTA's exposure here isn't about corruption or bias. It's about a system that produces numbers which can mislead the casual viewer, the casual sponsor, and the casual selector into thinking a player is in a downward trajectory. When the opposite is true, what happens next in Miami will matter significantly. A deep run, quarterfinals or better, would recover enough points to keep Eala's official ranking in the low to mid-30s, which preserves seeding at most WTA 1000 events for the clay season. Madrid and Rome are coming, and seeding in those draws directly determines whether she opens against a qualifier or a top 20 player. The difference isn't cosmetic. It changes her entire path through those tournaments and, by extension, her points accumulation, heading into the grass season and eventually the French Open. Eala herself addressed the pressure of returning to Miami in a recent interview, telling the Indian Wells Open website, "Miami last year was a beautiful time for me, and it was the start of all of this. But since then, I've achieved a lot as well. I've grown a lot, and I've had so many good matches, so many tough losses, so much experience since then, and that's helped me build confidence, self-esteem, and I know that I belong here."
Alex Eala advances to the Dubai WTA 1000 quarterfinals. Sheila Salaysay has that story.
Hi everyone, I just wanted to come on here and thank every single one of you for your support, taking the time and effort out of your day to be there and cheer me on with the other girls. It means so much, especially at this time of the year. I couldn't thank you more, and I had such a fun time.
That last sentence is the one worth holding on to, because the ranking system's overnight adjustment doesn't change whether she belongs at this level. It changes a number on a spreadsheet. The player who beat Swiatek 6-2, 7-5 in a WTA 1000 quarterfinal at 19 years old didn't disappear between Monday and Wednesday. She's at Hard Rock Stadium right now, and the points will follow the performance. They always do in the end. The WTA's system got exposed this week, not as corrupt, but as structurally indifferent to the human story behind the numbers. And for a 20-year-old carrying a nation's attention into every match she plays, that indifference lands harder than it would for almost anyone else on the tour right now. Watch this space closely. The next few weeks will tell us a great deal about where Eala's ceiling actually sits. And the ranking system, for all its cold arithmetic, will eventually have no choice but to reflect it. If this breakdown gave you something the highlight reels didn't, subscribe. We cover the mechanics, the context, and the stories behind the scorelines that most tennis channels skip straight past. Drop your prediction for Eala's Miami run in the comments. We read every single one.